Hey, beautiful friend, it's Marnie. Welcome back to Life is Delicious. Before we get started, I just wanted to ask you a quick question. How many times this week did you say yes to things that you really wanted to say no to? And how many times did you accommodate someone else's wishes so that they would stay comfortable? Well, in fact, you were not. The reason I ask is because this has become a very common situation for women who overfunction, especially when we have a lot on our plate. So if you feel like you've been overfunctioning or people-pleasing or maybe just doing more than you actually feel like you can do happily, I've created something just for you. It's called the 5-Day Midlife Boundary Reset. It's a 5-day email program where we do some quick resets that help to rewire the fear of disappointing others, and it helps us stop disappointing ourselves. Join me over at lifeisdelicious.ca, where it's free to sign up, and it will really give you some quick inspiration for getting your boundaries back on track. Have you ever wondered to yourself, maybe it's too late to reinvent myself? If you ever have, today's conversation is for you. I know a lot of the midlife women that I meet experience a little bit feeling like they're standing at a crossroads. Maybe the career they've had no longer fits anymore, or maybe they're approaching retirement and looking at a new identity. Maybe the empty nest is looming, and there's lots and lots of different ways. And sometimes it's just that there's a little voice inside that's saying, I feel like there's something more that I need to do, or something different, and I need a shift. But the trap we often fall into when we're in that situation is there's a fear of having to start all over, like from zero, from scratch, as if everything we've done in the past is not valuable or doesn't count. And that's just not true. I know for me, I have actually had a multitude of careers. I was a professional singer for a little while, and then I had a restaurant of my own, or a bistro, and then I moved into being a freelance writer, and then I actually became a real estate agent. And then after that, I was in voiceover work, and I became a wine rep, and I've had a multitude of careers. And now, here I am on a podcast. And so it's amazing when you look back at all of those different things that I did. I think for me, it has given me a unique skill set that nobody else in the world has exactly the same way. So what if that's true for you as well? What if reinvention in midlife isn't about wiping the slate clean, but instead collecting the wisdom of every chapter you've lived so far and turning it into something uniquely yours? Because every job you've had, every skill you've learned, every challenge you've navigated, and every role that you've played, whether it's personal, professional, or somewhere in between, is actually building something powerful. And I like to call it your personal recipe. Because if you think about it, nobody has the same secret sauce that you have with your collective wisdom and intelligence and experiences. And that's exactly what we're talking about today. My guest today, Rohanna Doilida, is a brand strategist and a second career woman who has reinvented herself a multitude of times. With a background as rich and varied as performing on Chicago stages, running a gluten-free and dairy-free bakery, and teaching in a classroom, Rohanna brings a soul-deep understanding of human connection, storytelling, and true reinvention. Today we're going to be talking about the real, emotional, and strategic challenges that women face when they're starting something new, especially when they're in their 40s, 50s, or 60s. Navigating imposter syndrome and self-doubt, to sharing your story and building a brand that feels true to who you are now. So if you've ever felt like you're starting over, I think this conversation will help you see things differently. So grab a cup of tea, settle in, and let's talk about reinvention, experience, and the beautiful power of the midlife second act. Welcome to this episode of Life is Delicious. I'm Marnie Martin, and I'm so glad you're here. And if this is your first time here, welcome to the Life is Delicious family. This podcast isn't about surviving midlife. It's about crafting your next chapter life, overflowing with purpose, joy, and delicious possibilities. Listen, midlife doesn't have to be a crisis. it can be a beautiful invitation to remember who we are, to rediscover a new version of ourselves, or to completely reinvent our life to reflect who we are becoming now. So if you're tired of being exhausted, living life on autopilot, and putting everyone else first, then you are in the right place. Each week, we'll bring you thought-provoking ideas and practical strategies, as well as inspiration to help you prioritize yourself again. It's time to take back your joie de vivre. So grab a notebook and pen and pop in those earbuds, and let's go get it. I don't know about you, but I'm not a fan of over-the-counter pain medications of any kind. But at this stage of life, almost everyone I know is living with some sort of chronic pain, inflammation, joint distress, or injury, not to mention the crazy symptoms that come along with menopause. The Freedom Super Patch is designed to help provide relief from minor aches and pains. It's safe, all-natural, non-invasive, and 100% drug-free, with no ingredients or side effects. Super Patch uses vibro-tactile technology to stimulate the skin's neural response through a unique pattern similar to a QR code that sends signals to the brain and your nervous system to generate less discomfort and stimulate better movement. You can get 25% off your first order at lifeisdelicious.superpatch.com. Give yourself the gift of drug-free pain relief with the Freedom Super Patch. That's lifeisdelicious.superpatch.com for a 25% discount. Welcome, Rohanna, to the Life is Delicious podcast. It's so awesome to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm happy to be with you and to get to talk to people with you.
Oh, I'm so excited. I know that a lot of what you do is help women to sort of rediscover all of the things and the talents and the life experience that's really brought them as far as they've come, and how to use those as strengths. So tell us a little bit about how you got into this work and how the diversity in your own life led you to doing the work you're doing today.
I am a woman who has reinvented myself more times than I ever thought was going to happen. I started off as an actor in Chicago. I spent 10 years on the Chicago stages, and I was a storyteller and a singer, and I thought that was home. That was where I was going to stay, until my youngest child was diagnosed with celiac disease. And this was 24 years ago, when people had never heard the words gluten-free before.
So, and that's a scary thing, isn't it, back then?
It really was. And his birthday was coming up, and I couldn't buy him a birthday cake because there was nowhere to get a safe one. And I realized that if I was going through this, then there had to be other parents who were feeling exactly what I was. And I had no business experience. I had very little baking experience, let alone specialty baking experience. And I thought, you know what? This is what my child needs. You know, we were, it was a couple of weeks right after the diagnosis, and we were in the grocery store. And back then, the health food, such as it was in my grocery store anyway, in the same aisle as the cereal. So if you can picture all those boxes of cereal and how exciting those look to children.
Right.
And then the other side, which was just dismal, right? And I'm with my son, and he's 3 years old.
Oh my.
And I'm looking at one side, you know, trying to figure out what to buy or what's safe. And I'm reading labels and ingredients. And he's turned the other way, looking at all these boxes of cereal. And he pulls one off the shelf, and he comes over and he says to me, "This gluten-free?" He used to talk like Elmer Fudd. And I looked at it and I said, "Sweetheart, no, that one's not gluten-free." And so he sort of nodded, and he went to put it back. And I just, started pushing the cart down the aisle, and realized within a step or two that he wasn't next to me. And I turn around, and he's just standing there with just tears down his little cheeks.
Aww.
And I sat down. Right there in the aisle in the grocery store, and he sat on my lap, and the two of us cried. And I said to him, baby, I will make this okay. I will figure out a way and I will make this okay. And that's what I did.
Aren't you a good mama? Wow, that's a
Well,
great story. And heartbreaking, too. And how on earth did you communicate to a 3-year-old what gluten-free was and how that would affect his body?
he knew the effect on his body. It made
He could
him
feel it.
very sick.
Wow.
He knew. And so we would say, these are the foods that are gluten-free, they're safe. And these are foods that have gluten and they're not good. And we used to use red and green stickers.
Oh, very good.
We'd put
I love
stickers
that.
on everything. So he could, open up the cabinet and look, and anything with a green sticker he could take. And the red stickers, things with red stickers, I sort of put up where he wouldn't even see them.
Right.
Then he got big. But so I just jumped into creating a business. And it was the most remarkable experience because, first of all, I didn't know I had it in me. And second of all, aside from the fact that, I had to learn the baking and I had to learn the marketing and the advertising and the packaging and the labeling and all those other pieces, what I discovered was that I was giving people something that was really special. And that was a place at the table.
Yes.
That they no longer had,
And I love that. And one of the things that's interesting, and I'm so curious because you could have just been a regular mom and said, you know what, I'm just going to learn how to do this in my kitchen and I'm going to feed my own child. And that's what I'm going to do. But you took it a step further and said, no, I'm not just going to feed my child. I'm going to help other moms feed their children or other people feed themselves with something that's not readily available. So that's a pretty interesting shift in an idea for a business. But how did you have that courage inside you to know that you could make that work?
I have no idea how I knew I was going to make it work. I just knew I had to. But it's interesting that you're mentioning that because I'll talk more about the other pivots and how I help women look back at their nonlinear careers and make sense out of them. But there's a through line. There's always a through line that you don't necessarily realize is there until you start looking back. So
100%. I agree.
I went, once we closed the bakery, circumstances changed and we closed the bakery, and I bounced around a little bit trying to figure out something to do. And I did all sorts of stuff. I did retail. I ran a fitness center, a gym to go work out. I did all sorts of different things. And I kind of stumbled into teaching. And I had no idea when I walked in what it was going to do to my heart. And I just fell in love. And I went back to school and I started teaching, and I teach early childhood education. So, that's little ones.
As we all know, life isn't always delicious. And one of the only constants we have in life is that things are always changing. Life can be a beautiful mess of twists and turns. And as we grow through each unique season of life, our needs change, our goals change, our priorities change, and our responsibilities change. And sometimes when the really hard stuff shows up, as it inevitably will, we can find ourselves lost and without a clear direction. Sometimes that can happen when we've had a huge life transition, like a divorce or a diagnosis, or we realize that our babies are all grown up and ready to be out on their own. And sometimes it can be a subtle or not so subtle restlessness that tells us we're ready to step into a bigger, bolder, more authentic version of ourselves. But one thing is for sure, we can't transition into what's next happily until we get really clear about what's weighing us down, what lights us up, and what we truly want when our soul whispers its truth. Happy is Not an Accident is a guided journal created to bring you back home to your truest self, to remember who you are, and to give you a safe place to explore and reflect on where you've been, where you really want to go, and who you want to become now. With deep, inspiring prompts, thought-provoking questions, and powerful exercises to help you excavate your most authentic self, Happy is Not an Accident will be the daily ritual that you look forward to as you step into this next awesome chapter of life. Give yourself the gift of self-reflection and create this beautiful life of yours on purpose and with intention. Get your copy or one for somebody that you love at lifeisdelicious.ca/happy. Well, it sounds like a beautiful fit because obviously you have something hardwired inside you to have compassion and empathy, right? Yeah,
it's
amazing.
The caregiving. But you learn so much from these little ones. The biggest one I think that I learned is, a child will try to do something and falls down, and he might even cry for a minute, but then he gets up and he moves on. But particularly women, we are trying to do something, we get it maybe not right, doesn't somehow work, and we take that to mean that we are completely wrong, we're bad people, we're absolutely never going to succeed. So many people, myself sometimes included, just see small things so out of proportion. And it's hard because I think as women, we are just conditioned to feel like we are never doing enough and we're never giving enough. And and so we always are trying to do more and give more and be everything for everybody. And it's an impossible ask.
Yes, it is. It is.
But I found that, as I looked back over all the different pivots in my life, that the one thing that I knew a lot about was reinventing myself and then having to figure out all the pieces of it and grow into a new role. And I thought, this is something that so many of us are doing. Women in their 40s, 50s, 60s, even 70s. And I thought, I can help. I can help with this. And that's what I started doing. So many women who are, in these, in our 40s and 50s and 60s, we claim that we're starting from scratch. But we can't. We can't start from scratch. No. We're too old for that. We have so much of life that we've lived, that we've experienced, that we've learned, that we've abilities that we've grown, situations we've navigated, perspectives we've gained, things we've survived. And all of that is what becomes your new credibility. So when you start something new, yes, there are new skills to learn, of course, but you're never starting from scratch. You're bringing with you all of this. I created a method that I call the wisdom bridge. And that is a method that helps women look back at all they've done in the past and then bring that forward into clear, credible language that helps them find their authority, helps them position themselves as somebody unique in the marketplace, and then allows them to really be the perfect person to help their clients and their customers and the people who need them.
I love that you've said that, and that's such a good point. And I love that you've called it the wisdom bridge. I do an exercise with a lot of my clients called the reverse bucket list. And it is all about just, instead of looking forward at what you haven't done, it's looking back at all the things you did and how all the adversities you had, and very similar to, being able to look back and go, wow, I forgot I even did that. And oh my gosh, and that wasn't so bad. And I actually didn't even know what I was doing and I still figured it out. And so you have all these moments of, oh, you know what? I've got a lot to bring to the table, and so many things that don't seem connected. Later on, you go, the reason that I can do what I'm doing today is because I have all of these tools in my toolkit that I got through all kinds of different avenues, right? And it's beautiful.
It absolutely is. I love that. I love the reverse bucket list. What a great idea.
It's just putting on a different set of goggles, right? And being able to give
Yeah.
ourselves some grace where we feel like, oh man, I've done all these dumb things, or I've, shifted when I should have maybe stuck it out. But I'm a firm believer that not everything should be easy, but there are a lot of things I also call show through talents. And I think that's kind of like your foray into education, is where you stepped into that and all of a sudden your heart went, yes, I belong here, right? And that's when something is easy like that, that's a show through talent. That tells you that that is absolutely the space you should be in because it comes naturally to you.
Yeah. And then I found that teaching foundational skills to small people enabled me to take big concepts and break them into steps, into easy, simple steps. And that's been a huge help with helping other women, understand where they are right now. That's something that seems so big, like imposter syndrome, that's we all experience. How do you get past that? And there's so many different ways, and being able to break them down and teach them, that's a skill I didn't have before I was teaching.
Well, isn't that interesting, though? Again, here you are working with all these little people and creating a framework for them to understand, but being able to transfer that framework into the work you're doing now, right? That's a perfect example of you having a life experience somewhere else and then saying, oh, if I didn't have that life experience, I couldn't have created the wisdom bridge at all and broken these things down for women to see clearly how simple it is that they can move forward. And so that's beautiful. That's a great example.
Thank you.
Do you find that most of the women that you work with are career women that are pivoting, or do you find that you have women that maybe have been at home for a long time and now are moving into the workforce? What's more of the demographic for what you work with?
Honestly, it's both. It's both. It can even also be people who are just moving up in their career, into a new position in their work, in their company, and suddenly having to take on more leadership responsibilities, suddenly having to find within themselves a way to help other people move forward. And talk about imposter syndrome, and when you're trying to come back into the workplace from being home with your kids, or for whatever reason, that you left the workplace, when you're coming back, you look around and see all these other people who've been doing this for years and years, and you think, well, why would anybody talk to me? Why would
Who am I
anybody
to do this? Who am I to do it, right? That's a very
Exactly.
common thing. We all feel that way sometimes.
Yeah. And it's funny because very often when I'm first having a conversation with somebody, I say, okay, so tell me about yourself. And they'll start just telling me about their lives and all the things they've done. And sometimes all I need to do is repeat back to them what they've said and say, did you realize you have done all of this? Do you realize you know all of this? And sometimes they look at me like, no, until you just said it that way. No, I had no idea that I've
Yes.
done all of this, and I have all of these skills, and I'm capable of so much.
And
It's
all of
really-
a sudden, the imposter syndrome melts away and the feeling validated, or feeling like they have something to bring to the table that nobody else can bring except them, right?
Exactly, because we're all unique. My circumstances are not anybody else's. but they were exactly what I needed. We throw around these words. It kind of makes me crazy. It's my own little pet peeve of, clarity, authenticity, alignment. Those are all really important words, but they're so overused and misused lately.
Mhm.
But to me, alignment is what happens when you see each step that you've taken suddenly fits on a path that brings you straight to where you are now. That's when things have, to me, that's when there's alignment. You
I love that.
suddenly, you can see it. And it's almost, I call it the second act compass, because it gives you that direction of
Yes.
what direction you need to go in.
I find it so fascinating. I use the word compass a lot in my work as well, because
Mm.
I feel like sometimes, I feel like even though we might not know it at the time, sometimes we're going along our path and then say a position shows up over here and you go, oh, I don't know, that's not really where I was wanting to go, but I'm going to take it. And so you take that position and you go over there and you do this thing and you realize that it's not for you, but you learn something along the way that you needed to have in your toolkit, right? So sometimes we have to zig or zag. And I think when we are not even realizing it, our intuition is guiding us through some of that places, and we go, we don't know until we've had that experience, and then we come out of it and we go, I needed to do that in order to find out that I don't want to do that, but I really want to do this. And it gives you that clarity, which, can come from having, contrasting experiences. But I think you're right. I think that the path we take is our own unique journey.
Absolutely. Yeah. The days of having a linear career, there are still people who do, but so many people don't, or so many people reach, their 50s, say, and realize that this linear career they've been on has never been fulfilling, never got them where they wanted to go, never fulfilled their dreams or the passion that they have inside them. And
Yes.
they make that pivot because something inside them says they have to.
Yeah. And isn't it interesting, like what you were saying about as we go through into midlife, all of these experiences that we've had and all of these different pivots or reinventions, as we get into this 40, 50, 60s, specifically, I would say more in the 50s and 60s, but I feel like because we have all that experience, we're not operating from the same system as we were in our 20s and 30s, where we didn't have the experience. Now we have something to look back and go, oh, I can do this and I'm not going to die, or I'm not, you know what I mean? We're not going to cave in. So we have a little more resilience built into the mechanism of making a bad choice once in a while and going, hey, you know what? I survived. It was okay. I know that I can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And sometimes you don't actually even realize that you are the hero of your own story. This is your hero's journey. It's yours. And
Such a good
when
point.
people will talk to me about adverse circumstances, things that have happened, and and there's a part of me, that my heart is melting and breaking. But what I say is, you have overcome so much, and here you are, standing here and moving forward and talking to me in order to help you move forward. And do you understand how powerful that is? You are the hero. You have
Yes.
risen above this, and you are moving forward. And sometimes hearing those words really changes how you feel about what you're going through.
I think it's so interesting because, it's just like the forest and the trees syndrome, right? If you're in your own story, you often aren't looking at the story from the outside looking in. So we don't always have that same appreciation for what we are doing. And then, of course, our friends or somebody in our life will go, wow, like you're incredible. And you're going, I'm just doing what I'm doing, and there's so much, downplaying of what's really great about it because we just don't see it the same way other people do.
That's interesting that you're talking about that because I've just created a new course. I've been working with a woman who is a somatic coach. And when we first started talking, we didn't really know if there was a way to even work together,
Yeah.
to blend what we do. But as we kept talking about it, we were noticing a pattern. And the pattern is that women who are so capable, who have so much knowledge, who are, stepping into something new, and they have a real issue with articulating their value. So they'll walk into, say, a networking event, and they've got the perfect sentence fully formed in their head. They know exactly what they're going to say. They know exactly how to talk to people. They've got it. And as soon as someone turns around and says, so what do you do? It disappears. The time that it's in their brain, by the time it gets to their mouth, it has softened. They've qualified it. They've buried it in explanation. They give a short version because the big version seems too big to claim. And that's really, that's the piece that we address. We've created this new program. It's called the Body Brand Blueprint. And we're just actually getting it off the ground, and we're doing workshops to help people, get to know what it is. But that's that moment where you just, and I've done this myself, where you want to walk in and be your professional self and be an equal among your peers and be able to talk to people. And somehow there's so much emotional stuff that goes on with these midlife reinventions, There's, and people don't really talk about this stuff, that quiet part. There's that sense of shame. Why don't I have things figured out yet? The embarrassment. People saying, you left a perfectly good job to do what?
Yes, 100%. That's yes.
All these different feelings and emotions that can be very overwhelming and can literally if your body is feeling that, no matter how many times you've rehearsed that sentence in your head or that, that code statement or your core message, whatever it is, if your body is still feeling that, it's so hard to make it come out right.
I love that you said that. And it's fascinating. I was just listening as you were talking, and I thought how interesting it is. And I'm just from my own, I'm having this visceral response as you're saying that, because I know exactly how that feels to walk into a room and go, I got it going on. I got stuff happening. I'm here to meet people and shake hands and, all the things. And then something inside, it may be that little people pleaser, that little girl from back in the day, something tells you, I don't want to be too big in this moment. I don't want to sound like I'm so full of myself. So we dial it all back. And we shrink and we tell part of the story because we don't want to seem like we're too much. And that's such a common thing amongst a lot of the women that I meet and talk to. And it's intrinsic. It's not something we even realize we're doing until somebody brings it to our attention. And so I think it's totally conditioning. And it's such an interesting thing to watch women as they get into their midlife place. And they start to have new boundaries, and they start to do, say no. No is a complete sentence, and all those little things. But that's a practice because we were not taught to be that way. as young girls, right? And that's a good conversation to have for sure.
It really is. We were so conditioned to not make waves, or
Not take
to
up too
not
much
draw,
space.
or too much attention, or or you seem like you're bragging, or people won't like me. It's like you said, that teenager, young girl still inside of us who just wants everyone to like us. But what happens when we call it embodied confidence. And when you can cross that wisdom bridge, when you can find inside of you those stuck points, those places where you think it, you feel it in your body, how are you going to move through this? Once you do, then when you walk into a room, you simply walk in as you. There's no script that you had to memorize or template you needed to fill in and then remember what to do. There's nothing you've got to rehearse. Even when I first started doing podcasts, and being interviewed on people's podcasts, I used to sit here at my desk with my feet up on my chair and my arms wrapped around my knees, and notes and scripts all over, in really big font, because otherwise I need glasses to see it,
Yeah, yeah.
And it was never, once Lydia and I, my partner and I, really started working on this, and I really discovered and embraced this embodied confidence. I'm sitting here in my chair, my feet are on the ground, and I don't have any scripts up. I don't have any notes out. I can walk in and I can talk to you about who I am and what I do. And you get the pleasure of that. It feels so good to be able to express, there's that word, authentic, to be your authentic self, because you're not putting on a part. You're not, playing a role.
Exactly.
You just walk in as you, and people respond.
It's such a beautiful thing. Yes. And I love that you said that, because it's the ability to drop the mask. It's the ability to, like you say, show up as yourself, and you don't need a script at that point. And that's what's so beautiful. And that's so much of what I teach here on the podcast. So I love this conversation, because I think this idea that we can strip back all of the things that we do to get approval. What's the word I'm looking for? I mean, approval is definitely the word. But when we show up like you are today, it's presence. It's just being right here in the moment and being as you are. And I don't think there's any greater gift that you can give anyone, whether you're in business or in a personal relationship. That's where the good stuff is. And that's how I do most of my interviews, is very much just the same way. I have a basic framework, but I love just the organic unfolding of the conversation, because that's where all the juicy good stuff is.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
If it's too scripted, it's no fun, right?
No, and then you're always listening to yourself and second guessing yourself. You're
editing
so busy
yourself.
in your head. You can't really participate in the conversation because you're having one in your own head.
Yes. That's so great. So tell us, I mean, I love all of what you've talked about so far. And when you're talking about the body brand, I do really feel you explaining that in a way where you embody those emotions and you don't have to put them on, because you actually live them. So talk to us a little bit about what the Wisdom Bridge is, and how maybe some of our listeners could, take a few little nuggets of wisdom to maybe apply them to their life today to, maybe start the process.
The first thing I talk to people about is changing their language. You've got to realize that when you qualify and almost belittle yourself, you take instantly all your credibility away. So when you come to, people will say, "Oh, well, I've just started doing this. I'm new, but I'm learning," or, "Well, I haven't been doing this very long." But I kind of think, that kind of language immediately you you're putting yourself down. You're not
Right.
giving yourself a chance. So the first thing I usually talk to people about is noticing their language, a real shift in it. I have not been in this space long, but I have years of experience at handling these kinds of situations. And that has given me what I need in order to talk to you about the
Right.
situation that you are in. Those
Yes.
little language pieces make a huge difference. The other thing that I think that helps with all of that conditioning that we've been through is setting intentions in the morning and celebrating successes in the evening. And they can be small. My intention today is to get out for a walk, to put things down, to step away and go for a walk and let myself breathe. And then in the evening, in terms of celebrating successes, it doesn't have to be, I closed $1 million deal. It's, you know what? I wrote that email and I sent it, that I've been uncomfortable, doing. I did it. Or maybe it was, I've been meaning to talk to somebody and I finally made time and I did it. And I spoke to a friend that I haven't spoken to for ages. Or, there's 100 little things we do. I tried a recipe. It totally
Yes.
flopped, but I did it. I
Little
tried it,
things. Little
and
things.
each of those little things add up. And day by day, they won't seem so great. But if you, at the end of the month, look back and read all the ones you wrote from the beginning of the month, or go further back. How about the beginning of the year or 6 months ago, whatever it is, you think, oh my God, look how much I've learned. Look how far I've come.
Yes. And then there's that piece of being able to slowly over time begin to trust yourself.
Yes. And that helps. That celebrating those successes helps you build that trust for yourself.
Yeah, I love that. When I had kids at home, we used to do a thing called the highs and the lows at dinner. And it was a safe place for the kids to be able to say, I was bullied today, or this happened. And so they could actually verbalize that. But then it was, what was your high today? And sometimes it was just the smallest thing. But I think those little tiny moments of being able to say, I had a math test and I expected to fail and I got 60% or 70%. And I was really proud of myself, like such a small thing. But those things over time, they build your character and your resilience and your ability to know that you can handle hard things.
Yes.
That's amazing.
So true. It is. So those are the first things I usually talk about when
I love
when I
that.
start working with somebody.
That's amazing. That's so great. Oh, gosh, this has been such a great conversation. So we actually have quite a bit of crossover and alignment because I'm also a singer. And
really?
yeah, I've been a singer. I actually went to school at 18 to become a singer. That's all I ever wanted to be. And now I'm a voiceover artist. And then I opened a restaurant and I had no idea how to do it. I opened a bistro. And I did that for several years. And same thing, just jumped in with 2 feet and said, okay, let's do this. And it's just so interesting because I think that ability to just go, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to figure it out and it's okay. I think there's some real superpower in that because
I think so too.
they're really, because if you're not afraid to be a bit messy and get it wrong, I think you can do really great things. And if there's anything I hope someone will take away from this, it's that there really isn't any failure. Sometimes you have to do something wrong in order to learn how to do it the right way. and that ability to just go, let's go. I know this is something I'm supposed to do, so let's step in and try it. I think there's something beautiful about that. Tell us a little bit more about your program and how people can get involved in the Wisdom Bridge and what exactly outcomes you would expect to have. Because I know we haven't really talked a lot about careers, but that is kind of one of the key things that you work with is women saying, here's I've done this and I've done this and I've done this, and how all of these skills come together to create this signature recipe, if you will, of your particular secret sauce.
So the Wisdom Bridge, the program itself is a 3-month program, and we begin with going through your past and with doing almost an inventory, and then learning through that what are the through lines and what has brought you to this. You have to understand your why. Why are you doing this now? Why have you made this pivot now? What is it that you need to have happen? And as we start putting together all those pieces of the past and understanding that skills translation, then we can really start building your credibility and your authority and your presence in where you are and in where you want to go. So honestly, it's different for every single person that I coach. There's no one size fits all. I don't like to work that way. I have a framework that we start with and that we work off of, but ultimately we go with where the woman that I'm working with needs to go. And sometimes that changes.
Yeah.
Sometimes someone thinks that this is what they wanted to do. And then as we talk and as they start trying things and moving through things and understanding themselves better, they realize that no, this is where I want to go. This is what I want to do. And then it clicks. Then it feels right. And then we create that core message. We create the introduction. When you go into a networking event or when you start talking to a client and you need to introduce yourself, you want the people you're talking to lean in and to say, oh, tell me more. Where did that, how do you do that? What is that about? So we build that. We build the language that comes from where you are, what you've built, and who you are, so that you embody it, and then you can move forward. And this is what my clients do. And sometimes some of my clients, it's been a lot longer than 4 months, or 3 months. It tends to be whatever they need it to be.
Yes, because everybody's on their own timeline, and that's the piece that I think we get wrong sometimes is it's like, why haven't I figured it out by now? But often it's a better question is, I'm here for a reason, and what is that reason?
Yes, what's your why?
Yeah.
What is your why? And yes, I give you tools to use. Yes, I give you things to think about, in between our sessions, or things to do and get done and try to achieve. But when you work with me, you're not watching recordings. You're not, listening to videos. We're working in real time together, and we build together in real time, and we build the language together. We work together to let go of old beliefs and old thoughts and limiting, things that keep us limited. And then we work together to build the new. So it can take, the goal was for it to take 3 to 4 months at the most, but that's just not the way it works.
No.
It's just not the way it works.
No, and
Um,
you got to be flexible with these things because we're all starting at a different place, and some people have a little bit more to let go of, and some people need to. In fact, a lot of, I think what I notice in a lot of the women that I talk with is that they don't believe that they can be more than one thing. And that, if they have a desire that they've kind of like, well, I've always wanted to do that. But I'm an accountant. So no, I can't do that. And I think there's that piece quietly as we get into our later years where it's that whisper gets louder and it's like, I can be more than one thing and maybe I can have a hobby, or bring something else to the table that I don't have to be a one-trick pony. And that's just a piece that I think I see so many women feeling shame around. Like, I shouldn't want more. I've already got this great career and, I have good kids and a nice family. So that should be enough. But the reality is we get to want what we want.
yes. And sometimes, that call, especially the call to serve others, I think you can only suppress that for so long.
Yes.
And then ultimately, I think I think people and women, I think we have to follow it. And that's where, yes, you've had, 30 years, you've been, an accountant and you're successful and, you're making a good living. And that's all great. But there's more to you. And it's time to bring that forward because that call inside of you is so strong that as you keep suppressing it, that sort of feeds negativity. It feeds negative emotions. It brings you down. And what we want for the women that we work with and that we talk with and that are listening right now, we want them to build up, to feel the positive, to understand how much they have to offer and how much is possible. And so that's where when you get to this point where this thing's yelling in your head, I need to be doing something different. That's where you need to explore it. You need to embrace it and you need to say, let me see what this is about.
Yeah. And I appreciate that you said that. That's such a good point because it's really important that, and we talk a lot about that here also because the whole reason I named this podcast Life is Delicious is because there's so many facets to what brings a full and beautiful life. It's not just one thing.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean that you deny that piece of you from the past. You bring all those skills with you. That's the wisdom bridge. That's the whole purpose of it, is that, that those 30 years of everything you've been doing, don't deny it. You're not apologizing for it. You may not be actually involved in it right now, but everything that it gave you, you are bringing forward.
Yes, 100%. I love that. Oh, goodness. Well, I love this conversation. I think it's really important to be able to, speak candidly about these things. I'm sure there are a lot of my listeners that are wondering where they can reach out to you and where they can find you. So before we wrap up, can you give us a little bit of information as to where people can find you and your social channels? And we'll make sure that we link all of that into the show notes as well.
Absolutely. So you can find me on LinkedIn or on Facebook or on Instagram. It's Rohanna Doilida. And I also have a gift that I like to share with people, with the listeners, if that's okay.
100%. Yes, I love it.
The link is there too. When there's a lot of nervousness that comes around stepping into visibility, particularly online. And when you're first having to become your own social media manager and having to put out posts or, or ads or whatever you're doing, you don't want to look like they're homemade. You want to look like a professional. And so this is a very simple guide. It is 12 easy steps. It's called Design with Confidence. And they're very simple, easy tips to incorporate immediately that make everything that you do just immediately build your authority and add your credibility to everything, you put out there.
I love that. And look more professional and all of it along the way. Well, that's such a beautiful gift, and we will definitely link that in the show notes as well. So if you are in a situation where you are reinventing yourself or you are transitioning from one thing to another, this is going to be a great guide to help you set yourself up as an authority in your space with ease and grace. So I love that.
Exactly. And you can always find the Body Brand Blueprint on Facebook or on Instagram as well, if you want to know more about that program.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here with us today. What a great conversation. And we'll do it again, hopefully.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. It's been so fun getting to know you.
Likewise. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I hope it inspired you or motivated you in some way to keep going and to create your very best life. If you did, would you take 5 quick minutes to leave me a review on Apple Podcasts? It's the best way for me to know that you are enjoying the show, and it helps other listeners find me as well. And while you're at it, head over to lifeisdelicious.ca and sign up for my email newsletter. It's like a warm hug from me every week, and not only will you get first access to new episodes, I've also put together a free 5-day email experience called the Midlife Boundary Reset, where you'll get 5 days of insights, mindset shifts, and daily journal prompts to help you gently start choosing yourself again and create better boundaries without guilt, drama, or burning bridges. I've put the link in the show notes as well, and I think you're going to love it. One last thing, if you know someone who would enjoy an episode like this, please do them a favor and share it with them. It's the best gift you can give someone that you love. If no one has told you today, there is no one on this planet that is exactly like you. And this world is a better place because you're here. So thank you for being here. I'll be back next week, and I hope you'll join me right here on Life is Delicious.